Hey, one more thing before you go. What happens when the trauma of one generation is passed down to the next? How do we break free from cycles of pain and find healing? We can answer these questions and more as we have a conversation about a story that is both heartbreaking and inspiring, a story of survival, trauma, perseverance, and the search for truth. I'm your host, Michael Hurst. Welcome to One More Thing. Before you go away, and don't go away. My guest is Nancy Hart. She's the author of Whispers, Sinners, and Saints. It's a gripping multi-generational biography that uncovers the devastating impact of war, abuse, and disinformation while highlighting the resilience of the human spirit. Nancy's book takes us through the harrowing experience of Anne, a Hungarian woman who survived the horrors of Nazi persecution only to carry the weight of her trauma into motherhood. Her daughter, Anna, endured unimaginable abuse but found salvation through an omniscient connection, all-knowing. This raw and deeply personal account forces us to confront the lasting effects of generational trauma and the power of perseverance. In this episode, we're going to explore her journey in writing this book, the truth she uncovered, and the lessons we can all take from this extraordinary story. So stay with us as we uncover the whispers of the past, of sinners who shaped destinies, and saints who offered hope. And I'm excited about this conversation. Welcome to the show, Nancy.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here as well.
You know, it is, I have to say hello to my old home state, Colorado. So please say hi for me because I miss it.
Okay, I will. We'll go outside after the conversation and I'll wave a big hello for you.
Wave a big hello. Thank you very much. I know that you're not originally from Colorado, but where'd you grow up?
I grew up in New York City, Manhattan, in
A
the streets of
big
Manhattan.
far
Yeah,
cry from Colorado, huh?
a very far cry from Colorado. And, being out there at age 3 in New York City and the streets in the 1960s was not an easy thing for me. But my mother said, there's no war tanks out there, so you're fine. And
It's all perspective, right? It's all perspective.
I
Oh,
was
yeah,
like,
look at it.
it depends on how you look at it. The
Exactly.
boys, to me, they looked like war tanks. To me, they were very scary. Yeah.
You know, it is what brought you what brought you to Colorado?
Well, my mother always said to me that I was going to end up behind God's country.
Wow.
So I didn't belong in New York City. She'd always say that to me. And I just go a little slower pace. I like to say hello to a lot of people. I have a different kind of way to me. And I've traveled the world and I said, I just want to go someplace that's very friendly and easygoing. And then if I need excitement, I can always go and visit the big cities, which is great, which I love, and
Hmm.
all the temples and churches and this and that. But for everyday life, I love the energy of the mountains out here.
You know, it's. I have several friends that are from New York, and that's where they ended up. Actually, in fact, one of my old partners, he was a retired sergeant out of New York City, and he came out and worked for the department that I was working at in Colorado, and he put himself right up in the middle of the mountains, and he said, "This is. I love this." He said, "I miss New York occasionally, but he said, this is it." So, welcome. Welcome to
Thank
Colorado. That's pretty cool.
you.
Um, your book. I know that you're an author. What brought you to become an author? I mean, did you always grow up wanting to be an author? Did you want to go to college? Did you want to be a psychologist or a doctor or?
Hmm. I knew I was going to write when I was age 4. I had an experience with my mother who was very abusive, and I had asked this omniscient being that I'm always in contact with. He's always with me. I call him Whispers, hence Whispers in the book. Sinner was my mom, and the saint was my grandma. So I had to make sense of things because my mother it didn't make sense how she always exploded. And he said to me, everything will be all right when I write. Well, I was 4 years old, so it took me a little bit of pacing up and down on the street that she threw me out to from the car outside of the park to figure out what exactly is right and right. You know, when you're right, you're right. I mean, of course, you're right when you write. So, RIGHT. And then I realized, oh, there's a different kind of writing. So when I write everything, everything will be all right. And um, I don't know, but your listeners and yourself, if you know that spirit kind of talks to you and it has a sense of humor. So he was definitely right because by the time I wrote, when I really started writing and I got this book published, my mother had passed away. So he was very correct in what he said. Once I wrote the book, everything was all right.
Did you go to university? Did you go to college, or did you just go right into writing?
Oh
Right,
no.
that's not proper English, is it? Right into writing.
You know, and as long as you're expressing yourself and you work on it, it'll come out right. People will understand. I went to University of Miami. I did not go for writing. I went for psychology
Mhm.
because I needed to figure out what was wrong with my mother. And
I'm right. I'm actually right there with you. I am.
you're right there with me, are you? Yeah,
Definitely, definitely.
I find it very helpful. Psychology, you know, yeah. And then I had children. I got married. I had to get married, not because I got pregnant, but my mother forced me to get married because she wanted me to get an MRS degree. So I did not want that. I wanted to always be a doctor because I like to help people.
Mm.
But I got an MRS degree. I raised two children. They're adults now, and I did very well with them. So that's my background, and I've traveled the world, and I'm also a Reiki master. I'm a healer. You know, I'm very my gifts are
Well rounded.
I'm well rounded, and I'm also
Mm.
clairvoyant, so clairaudient. That's my connection with whispers because he actually talks to me in my right ear, not my left one, only my right ear.
Only writer. Well, I mean, I think that in itself is a gift. I've talked to a lot of people on the show that are clairaudient, they're medium from all perspectives,
Yes,
and some of them do all of the senses, not just one or two.
yeah,
And
I have that too. Yeah,
some have called it not necessarily a curse but a burden, and others have said it was a gift. And I personally, I think that connection with the metaphysical, that connection with the other side, that connection with that omniscience, excuse me, presence is
hmm,
like to me is a gift because you have insight that others don't have. You have guidance,
yeah,
on a consistent basis. Somebody that's like you have right there whispers in your ear. So
yes.
that's pretty interesting. I know that your book, Whispers, Sinners, and Saints,
Hmm,
it's a deeply personal thing and it spans generations.
hmm.
What inspired you to write this? Is there intergenerational trauma within your story?
Oh yes, I mean there's stories within the stories. Each chapter is a story, and then about the multi generational. I go back to pretty much my mother's grandmother, and even before that, so my mother's great grandmother, and how she affected how that it was that they lived. It's really interesting because my great grandmother, her great grandmother, grew up and lived in Hungary, and her husband was from Poland. And the horse, he was a traveling salesman, like from the real original traveling salesmen. He had a horse, and he would tie everything onto the horse. And between Poland and Hungary, travel with the wares that he would be selling. He Once he sold something, he says, "Put in your order," and then he'd go back and forth. And one day the horse died in Hungary, so he wound up marrying the prettiest girl in the village and opened up a first general store in the area. So she grew. The wife had everything because having a general store back then, you did very well. That's you had everything. You know, clothes, food, all that. So his children, one of them was my mother's grandmother. She grew up not knowing how to do anything because they always thought that she was going to get married and do well because they had dignitaries and they have all kinds of titles back then in Hungary. They'd all seek out her hand. But they did not allow her to marry the man that she wanted to marry. And then one day she turned 28 and she said, okay, the guy that I wanted to marry gave up on me now and got married. So I'm just getting the first guy that comes to the door because at those days, 28 years spinster. And she said, I'm just going to get out of here. So in knocks on the door is my great grandpa to be, and he was a 6'8" artist. He was commissioned to make a portrait for somebody at a big mansion in Vienna, and he saw my and great grandmother's picture on the wall and said, "Oh my God, I'm going to marry this beauty." And he carried this picture, this little small picture in his little pocket. And when Regina was her name, when she answered the door, it was very strange because she was not the young girl that was in the picture. So he goes, "Oh no, I don't understand this." But she says, "Well, come on in." And then he married her for the money. He said, "Oh, all these nice things here. I can have the life that I want. I'm a artist extraordinaire." Well, her family disowned her. And then because he did not come up to par, they had eloped and gotten married. And so the next generation struggled in poverty. They were in the ghetto before the ghetto was marked the ghetto by Hitler's people in Hungary. And so she didn't know how to cook. She didn't know how to clean. She had like six children. One, I think she lost through a miscarriage, but three people eating one potato every night. They couldn't even afford the butter. It was terrible squalor. Um, and then my grandmother wound up being, what do you call that? Roused out and taken to Auschwitz. And all the men were already gone.
Mm.
And my mother was left behind. She was about 11 or 12, like around that age. And my grandmother was very smart because she saw that the times were changing. So
Mm-hmm.
she got her baptism papers. She got her daughter baptism papers. So my mother would go in and out of not the concentration camp, the gates of the ghetto, and take care of her grandmother, who was very, very skinny and dying of hunger. And but that kind of um, then on top of that, what really I think played a part in my mother's not being well was she was an illegitimate child born in the Depression in 1932. So it was very, very bad. On top of being Jewish, the Jewish part was fine until Hitler came around, but
Mm.
it was very hard. And I don't know. I like one day I'll feel like this. Sometimes I'll feel a different way because if she wasn't the tough cookie she was, if she wasn't, she was very like very tough. Like the teacher told her to pull her boots off in first grade, and my mother, which was very common back then. That's how you showed respect in Europe, anyway. The teacher would sit down, lift her leg, and show the boot and say, "Remove my shoes," and everybody did it. And my mother said, "What are you, crippled? Take it off yourself."
Sounds like my grandmother, actually.
Does it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
really interesting. How does that follow? I mean, is this how does that correlate with the book? I mean, I know that we follow Anna and her mother,
yeah.
and both through unimaginable trauma and resilience. Is it
Hmm.
closely related to this particular story? Is this biographical? How does this
Yeah.
relate to the book?
Yeah. That story is within that book. And I actually was born Anna. My mother didn't know what they were saying to her and when they were asking her name. So she was Anna. And then at 5 years old, I said, I'm not doing this anymore. My name's Nancy. And I just wouldn't answer her. Whatever she did, I didn't care if she beat me. I just wouldn't answer. If she'd say Nancy, Nancy, then I answered her. So I guess I have a little stubbornness in me too, but I kind of got fed up with running back and forth. My grandmother came out to America, and I write all this in the book. But when she came out, I was 5, and I was really like about the first time I started to eat because my mother was highly negligent as well as abusive, and you know, I, I mean, I didn't even know how to eat. I ate like an animal. My grandmother had to teach me how to eat. Nobody would sit and eat with me.
Oh,
My Yeah, it was very hard. But what I had to get over was knowing that my mother hates me from day number one. From the moment she saw me, she would tell me from being very young that she tried to send me back, but they wouldn't let her send me back. She said she didn't want me. She wanted a pickle in the middle. That's the way she put it. And she didn't get the pickle in the middle. She wanted a boy.
sure.
She
Oh, I got you.
very
Gotcha.
nice,
Then
but
the gentlemanly way of saying that.
you're right. It's like she's like it's a sandwich or something. But uh, yeah. Hmm.
Well, it's interesting. I think that those of us that have grown up I won't say in that kind of environment, those that grew up in I was a domestic violence cop for a long time. In fact, because of it, I grew up with a very dysfunctional family myself. And in growing up as a dysfunctional family, you recognize it more and more, especially when you go into other houses. So that allowed me a better observation perspective as a police officer when I worked at domestic violence task force. And people don't always understand domestic violence is not just physical all the time;
Hmm.
it's mental and physical. And that if it's perpetually put upon you, and you're perpetually in that environment, I know that sometimes it becomes unbearable and to even survive within that environment. So kudos first for coming out of it and wanting to make your own way and being able to make something positive of your life because that's where you've come to this point here where you've written this book that's shared. You became a parent yourself and your kids are grown and you've made a life for yourself in a very positive way. So I appreciate that. In changing your name from Anna to Nancy, do you think that just gave you more confidence and fortitude and strength to be able to survive through all that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, because my mother was Anna, and I did not like my mother. I loved her. Don't get me wrong. I loved my mother, but I was nothing like my mother. And she would always say to everybody, "We don't look anything alike. We're nothing alike. She's nothing like me." So I said, why would I want to have her name? What? And then my middle name was Clara, which was my grandmother's name. But they would call each other, to come over here. And I would show up and then I would hear, no, not you, the other one. And after a while, there was just so much I could take of that. Um, so Nancy happened to be the pretty girl on the edge of night soap opera that my mother watched. And I had figured out that's the name I want, but I had to do it in a timely fashion. And I had to lead her into thinking that she thought of the name, and I had to ask only when it was in commercial time. So, at age 5, my mother was already teaching me, like, you know, clear empathy. Like I can feel people's emotions and know when is the right time to say something, when is not the right time to say something. It's but yeah, I could not go and be Anna. Anna is a great name, though. As I'm older now, I love it because it means Mother Mary's mother, but my mother was no Mother Mary's mother. I must find it
Yeah.
sacrilegious.
And yeah, I can understand that very much. So in the book, then I'm assuming Anne's survival during the Holocaust would would be your mother.
Yes,
So,
yes.
what was the most difficult part of recounting, like her within this? And I'm sure that this probably brought up an immense amount of emotion and anger and resentment, and I'm sure a multitude of emotional aspects. What was the most difficult part of recounting that experience and those experiences?
Yeah. Well, the most difficult time was remembering it each all the time so that I could make sure that I retell it. So in my spare time, which was most of the time in transport between school and the library, and like I had to be out of the house when the sun came up and I couldn't be home until the sun was setting. So I'd be at the library or on the street. Or if I was running from my mother and I was in the house and I locked myself in the bathroom and I'd be in the bathtub, hours of that going over it and over it again. Uh, what what in the book I find is very intense. This is an intense book. Is that I take where she actually goes through a flashback of a situation where the Nazis killed a whole slew of people before my mother's eyes, and then her going and um, perpetrating her violence against me blow by blow. So that is one of the arcs in the book. But what I found, and something I did never expect, is I wrote a second book, a third book. I'm just waiting for the editor to be done. But after the second book, did I realize this was like um, the best outcome that I could possibly have is that I always thought my mother didn't tell me that she loved me. And in reality, after I wrote the book, did I realize my mother said it, but she mispronounced it on purpose. Like if I would say, I love you in English, she would say, I love you. But in Hungarian, it's imádlak. This means I love you. She'd never say imádlak. She would say emádlak. She had a hard time expressing love to me. But when I realized that she had said that I love you just in a cuckoo way, it made me feel really good. I mean, I could tell you, I got all choked up about it, and I got a sense of warmth and a sense of something like fantastic. I never expected that to happen.
How do you think that writing the book, do you think it helped you to process understanding your family's history and the impact of generational or intergenerational trauma? Intergenerational trauma is an interesting aspect of learning what happens to us through generations and how we carry all of those traumas forward. Not just the one previous to us, but several previous to us.
Yes, my artistic great grandfather had explosive disorder, which, uh, yeah, I figured out while I was in college reading all those books about what was his problem. But that is what my mother also had, is an explosive disorder.
Mm.
Uh, and there is a scene, I believe it's in my third book, where my grandmother and my mother actually come to blows. I'm not sure if it's my second or my third because I'm like kind of a little, but he would just take everything on the mantle and just with one swipe, knock everything down and just yell. And there was a lot of fear with the children.
Hmm.
They would hide in the corner. They only had a one bedroom, which was no real bed. It was like an efficiency today. And he would just holler and holler and holler. He'd pray 5 times a day or 3 times sometimes. And he was an Orthodox Jew, but he could not control it.
Well, you said he was 6'8".
He was 6'8". Yeah, so he
Yes.
was a very, very big man.
Yeah, that in itself would create a very fearful situation, especially when
Right.
they get angry and start losing tempers and things.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
I mean, combine that with being somebody they were probably starving. So, when you're hungry, you get hangry. And I cannot imagine like a 6'8" man
hungry
being
guy.
hungry.
Yeah, yeah, that would, yes, that would create a situation. I do believe. Yes, I do
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah.
Do you think Anna's connection to all knowing is a powerful theme in the book? Can you explain what that meant for yourself actually, and then how it shaped the resilience and the fortitude that you now possess in your life?
hmm Yeah, I could tell you that it was basically, I could say it was all that I had, and it still is today, all that I have. But I've come to find and conclude and realize that all the negative things that life has pushed me to, and with its tests, uh, I really find answers, solace, and even a stronger bond, even a stronger belief. I do not, I don't know what it is for other people. I just know that for me, there's no doubt that I have a connection. And without it, I would not be able to have survived without killing my mother, or being in jail or having done drugs or turned to the bottle and look for my happiness on the bottom of the bottle. So, because I have had whispers to guide me, and I am, I am happy with who I am as far as you know.
As far as that goes, and you should be, and you should be.
Mm.
Hello, puppy. By the way, puppy's he's going. Hey, hey, how you doing?
No, I have a ham over here.
Yeah, I saw him. I saw him peek up over there, like, "How you doing?"
How you doing? It's
Uh,
funny.
do you
Oh,
think? I know disinformation plays a role in shaping historical narratives and so forth. Do you think? Does your book challenge misconceptions about survival, trauma, and truth, especially um, because it's a lot of it surrounding the Holocaust and surrounding the persecution of an entire race, and as well as some of the other intergenerational things. How do you approach that in the book? How did you approach that?
I'm not sure if I understand. You're saying, how do I approach people that might say there was no Holocaust?
Well, no, I mean the book itself. Do you approach that because I know that historically there's a lot of disinformation with what's going on. You have
Mm,
the unique ability of being able to present a story from a personal perspective and one that's close to you and your family.
mhm.
From that, do you find it hard maybe to maybe to hold back from trying to I won't say overcompensate because of the disinformation, because that's starting to rear its ugly head again, unfortunately.
Mhm.
So does the book address that in any way?
I just tell the truth. I just tell the stories that I overly overheard over and over and
Right.
over again. The numbers that I would see on my grandmother's arm and my reaction to it. And not, I said, "Well, you writing a telephone number on your arm? I mean, what's wrong with you? That's not even your phone number." I was
Right.
5 years because you never saw it. We don't discuss this. Um, but she would show me different signs that she would eat a grapefruit and put it on top of her head, turn it inside out. And she says, my father used to wear a hat like this. Well, I didn't know what she was talking about until,
Yarmulke.
yeah, the yarmulke later on. Then she'd take a a lemon, do the same thing for a lemon, and put that on top of my head. She goes, "Oh, that looks more like the bumps that you have from your mother. Never mind, we throw that one in the garbage." So I just say it the way I heard the stories. And, I took literature of the Holocaust in college, and it's always been a, like writing the book. I find since everybody is gone, except, now really everybody is gone. I only ever got to know my mother and my grandmother for a few years because she passed away. I feel like I'm spending time with family that I never really got to. And I am serving respect for people that really need respect and deserve respect. And, get rid of maybe some misconceptions. Like some people think all Jews have, I don't know what. And meanwhile, like I made sure to tell you, my family was living in the ghetto before they circled it, the ghetto. It was so bad, So, yeah, I just say the truth. And I'm very authentic. I don't hold
Right.
anything back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and exactly, that's how you should be. Was there an emotional toll of writing such a like a raw and personal story? Like, were there moments you felt like stopping? I asked this because I told you I from a domestic violence situation. I worked at a domestic violence task force for like almost 5 years straight. So watching dysfunction in families, especially, and how that carried itself down. I know that people having to recount stories, it was very, it brought up where they stopped talking or they shut down or they, did you have any moments like you felt like stopping?
Well, what I would do is I would write the story, and it would be, basically when I write a book, each book is written over 50 times because you write the story first, and you when you read it the second time, you're like, what is this? I didn't fill in anything. It's just basically almost like bullet points or sentences and things like that. And yeah, there are things that I had to write about, more personal, that had happened to me, like in my second book, that have happened to me that I couldn't even read it at some times. So I would read and redo and work. When I mean redo, I mean you're massaging it and getting exact words and feelings and smells, and you want the person to be in your shoes. That's what makes my book so intense, because you're saying, "Oh my God, how is this even true? This can't even be true." It's so unbelievable because I make the person actually go through it, you know. And yeah, there's times when I've had to skip. Like I know chapter 2 in my second book. It's so bad that I write it in poetry form. But it's my personal. I went through a very horrific experience, and yeah, I have a lot of emotions. I have a lot of sensitivities. I'm not a cold person. Sometimes I wish I wasn't so sensitive. That is very difficult for me, but yeah.
Well, I'm sure the whispers in your ear are helping.
Yeah.
How did you come up with Whispers, Sinners, and Saints as a title? That's a very unique, catchy title, by the way.
Oh, I thank you for that. I appreciate it. Well, Whispers is the person who speaks, and I says, I'm just going to name it after the people that are the main characters in the book. Whispers, Sinners is my mom, and Saint is my grandma. And that's how I came up with it. Yeah. And anything
Very
else I had
unique.
was taken.
Hey, it's you're right. You're right. What you know. That's what they tell you. Correct.
Yes.
Right. What you know. What do you hope
Yes.
readers to take away from Whispers, Sinners, and Saints, especially those who've experienced trauma or abuse, like for what your family has gone through and what you have gone through?
Okay, well, I would like to make sure that I have a philosophy, and that is one who laughs loudest masters life the best. And I would like to say, like a honeybee sucks the nectar from the rose does not wither from that. The rose instead continues to spread beauty, and fragrance. So that's what I would like everybody to see metaphorically.
That I think that that's one message, one key message about survival, healing, and perseverance. With especially reading that book, sounds to me like something everybody can get that out of it.
Hmm. Yes, yeah, and yeah, absolutely. And then anger, it teaches forgiveness, so it's very important. And to heal anger, you need forgiveness. Forgiveness will heal anger. So anything that you find that is a negative in your life, also people need to see that it's really not as bad as you think it is, even though it's horrible and you feel it. But if you say there's got to be something in this that I can learn and become better, not bitter, then at least there was a purpose for
Mm.
you having gone through what you went through, as opposed to just, it's all their fault, it's this and that. No, you got to turn out to be better and not bitter.
I like that, better, not bitter. I think that's a that's a unique approach to that as well. I've not heard that before, but I think that that's a good way to approach life in
Yeah,
general.
yeah,
Better, not bitter. Yeah, because we can
better.
get bitter about a lot of things,
Oh, yeah.
especially lately. It's kind of one of those, about everywhere you go, there's road rage, or there's somebody angry, or your next door neighbor's angry, or the guy in the car next to you or behind you's angry, or the person in line at the grocery store angry.
And
So,
that's exactly like a little tap on your shoulder. And at that exact moment, you're supposed to say, ah, okay, there's a test. I'm being tested right now. What is that test? Why is that action bothering me? Why should that bother me? And within there is the lesson.
and
Because
whether or not yeah, don't lash out and smack them.
yeah, who are you? Like what? See, ego gets in the way. Like what? How dare they bark at me, or how dare they honk their horn at me? Well, you're just
Yep,
a regular guy. You don't take it personal. The guy's having a bad day. You just have to
yep.
say, "Boy, someone's having a bad day," and laugh at it. Just ha ha ha. You-
Exactly, exactly. Take it out. And again, it's just a great statement all the way around. Um, how long did it take you to write the book?
it took me. It took me 8 months to sit down and write the book.
8 months.
Yes,
And,
yes,
I know you said you've got several out.
yes.
Um, uh, the
Written, but not out yet. I'm waiting for the editor.
to
The
go through
second
them.
book coming back, yeah, and then I'll get a title. This time I'll be getting a title very shortly. I've got a few in the works, but have to work on it together. And I don't want to say, because if I don't get that one, then somebody else will steal it, and I might want it later. So, but yeah, and there's sequels. Each book will stand on their own, so you could read each one
Right.
separately. But the second book is definitely not as violent. The first book, I put the violence in there because I'm trying to make a point that, yeah, I am a happy person, but all this stuff did happen to
Yeah.
me, and here's the proof, and that I've gotten over these things. And then more and more, it's a continuation of what really makes a person uh, clear cognizant, clear empathic, clear sentient, clear tangent, all those things, clairaudient.
Well, I
And
think it's an opportunity for us to really understand more about life within ourselves and what else is out there, and listen to the whispers that we may have, and we may think that this is just a fly bug in essence trying to, get away kind
yeah,
of a thing.
definitely.
Yeah,
It's like a muscle. If you use it, it'll grow. And if you don't use it and you just say, nah, 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 well, you're missing out. I think you're missing out on something very magical in life.
your guide will give up and go sit over there and have a cup of coffee, and
Yeah, they'll go
yeah.
somewhere else where they're listening to. Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
how can somebody find your book?
Well, you can get my book anywhere, actually. You can go to any bookstore, you can go anywhere, Spotify. But I like Amazon. It's just the easiest thing. Order it on Amazon. It's also Audible. I did it myself in Audible. I'm very animated, so I had a good time doing that.
And
And
you have the right accent.
yes, I put in the Hungarian accent when that was necessary, you know.
Exactly, exactly. And your website, please,
Yes, my website is nancyhart.com.
which is really easy to remember. Just remember Nancy with a heart. You wrote this book with your heart. So that's an easy way to put that. I know they can find you on Instagram and a whole bunch of other social media. They'll all have all of those links in the show notes as well as on a webpage dedicated specifically to this episode, including one that they can click and follow the link to get to your webpage to get your book.
That sounds great. Please do so.
What a wonderful opportunity to be able to share some of your history, to kind of relive some of that history, to forgive, which I think is a really good opportunity. Get better, not bitter. See, I love that. I'm gonna keep saying that if you don't mind.
Yeah,
Um,
great.
and then to also allow others to be able to live through you and understand that there are people that no matter what you're going through, there's always hope at the end of the tunnel, and you just got to look for the light and follow for the light.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is one more thing before we go. Before we go, do you have any words of wisdom?
Sure. Anything that takes power over you teaches to reclaim your power.
Absolutely brilliant words of wisdom. I appreciate that. Nancy, thank you for being on the show. I appreciate you writing your book. I appreciate you sharing that. As I just said a minute ago, I think that it's an opportunity for us to have a better understanding of other people's lives and how they might affect us and how we can use that as a lesson to move forward in our own way. So I appreciate you very much.
I appreciate you too, Michael Hurst. You're a very good commentator and a very good interviewer. Appreciate you most.
Thank you. Thank you very much. For everyone else out there, thank you very much for being a part of One More Thing Before You Go community. Again, Nancy's links will be in the show notes. Please like, share, subscribe. And one more thing before you all go. Have a great day. Have a great week. And thank you for being here.
Thanks for listening to this episode of One More Thing Before You Go. Check out our website at beforeyougopodcast.com. You can find us as well as subscribe to the program and rate us on your favorite podcast listening platform.